It's Orange and Blue today. We're presented by Sean Ponda, Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and our What If series continues. And what if Jerry Jones would have gotten some party time in on day one of the draft in 2016 when he really, really wanted Paxton Lynch? So did Andy Reid. Well, and so did the Denver Broncos. But what if the Cowboys were able to make the move that Denver did because they moved up to 26 and took Paxton Lynch? Jerry Jones on record said he lost sleep that night because he did not get his passer. He got someone else a little bit later, which will tie into our conversation as well, Mace. So again, what if Paxton Lynch wasn't a Bronco?
Yeah, this is what Jerry Jones said the day after that trade went down. Quote, "When I got up this morning, I second-guessed the hell out of myself for not giving the third-round pick. I have always paid a premium for a premium. So many times my bargains have let me down. I'm not going to go jump from Dallas's tallest building, so let's put this in perspective. But if I had to do it all over again, I'd give the 3. And instead, the Broncos gave the 3. Dallas offered a 4. Seattle took the Broncos offer and picked Paxton Lynch."
Yeah, thanks, Seattle.
Yeah. First of all, Jerry Jones says, "I've always paid a premium for a premium." Now you look back on that and say, he's talking about Paxton Lynch as a premium.
As a premium. Well, you remember the Sports Illustrated cover, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was like, it said Generation Next or something like that, where like it was deeming Paxton
The
Lynch
successor,
as
I believe,
it was
is
the successor.
what it said.
Right, because the Broncos coming off Super Bowl 50, let's keep this thing going. John Elway gets his guy. They move up to get him. And disaster ensues, largely because, well, Gary Kubiak didn't like Paxton Lynch. I don't want to speak for Gary with the kick drum, but like that was just a bad fit. There was a player who at the Senior Bowl that year, I said, in whatever station I think I was on the Fan that year, you got to get Dak Prescott. Perfect for Gary Kubiak. Prescott has traffic in Orlando, misses his flight to Denver for his pre-draft workout, had a DUI, I believe, after the Senior Bowl and before the Combine maybe. And then his draft stock takes a tumble. Cowboys get him. Broncos get Lynch, but imagine if that was reversed because Dak Prescott obviously had first-round talent.
The bonkers thing is that the Cowboys actually had another quarterback ahead of Dak Prescott, too. They had Connor Cook out of Michigan State ahead of him. But they tried to negotiate with the Browns for a trade-up to the Cowboys, and it didn't work out. So, basically, they completely settled for Dak Prescott, and he's been a pretty successful quarterback.
So that's I think there's a Garth Brooks song. It's like, I thank God for unanswered prayers.
Yeah. I
think Jerry had a couple of unanswered prayers if he passed on Connor Cook and he wasn't able to get Connor Cook and Paxton Lynch and got Dak Prescott instead.
Okay. So
Denver doesn't have Paxton Lynch.
Denver doesn't have Paxton Lynch. And they hold on to what was the last pick, of course, in the first round there in 2016. What do you think they do first of all with pick it was pick 31?
Well,
is what it was because it was New England had forfeited his choice. It was the whole Deflategate thing.
Right, yeah. So it was 31, and I have heard, and again, this is part of the conversation for this, but I've heard that Dak still would have been the pick. I don't know if I believe that
at 31.
At 31,
okay,
yes. If they don't, oh man, we missed. And 31 would have been Dak Prescott because, again, he was perfect for Gary Kubiak.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Even with the missed meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
And first of all, let's start there because this is a simple equation here that they would have picked Dak Prescott. First of all, that they keep an extra third round pick. That they end up trading. Of course, they got Justin Simmons as a compensatory third-round pick. But I mean, some of the names that you're looking at that were in that range that the Broncos could have had. There was Joe Schobert, who actually had a cup of coffee here.
Right. Who did Seattle take off the top of my head?
Nick Vannett.
Oh, okay.
But the Broncos wouldn't have taken him because they took Jeff Hireman the year before.
Right.
The guy who went right after Vannett there with that pick was Graham Glasgow. So imagine for a moment Graham Glasgow comes to Denver early. And I would argue with Glasgow, the Lions got the best out of him.
Yes.
He was capable here, but of course had injury problems.
And he fought through it. And
Yeah.
sometimes with these players, it was different for Shane Ray, and because
Yeah.
Shane just couldn't do it. But when players play through injury, like, why doesn't this guy look good? Why didn't Graham Glasgow look good? He's hurt. But he was playing the best he could.
Yeah, I mean, remember Dalton Reisner declining late in the 2019 season when he was playing on a high ankle sprain, right? Lou Vasquez didn't look as good in 2015 as he did earlier.
Evan Mathis's hamstring was black.
Yes.
The back of his leg was completely black and blue.
Mm-hmm. So that matters. So you're plugging Graham Glasgow in on the offensive line, but you're plugging early career healthy Graham Glasgow in. So
I like that.
So you're helping yourself up front.
I like that a lot.
Which means maybe Devontae Booker is a bit more effective. You're still picking him, of course, on day 3 of the draft. But the big thing, of course, is Dak Prescott. First things first, Dak Prescott wins the job comfortably in training camp that year.
Yes.
He won the job in Dallas. He would have won it here. Second, Dallas, of course, had a bit more juice in their running game, but the Broncos certainly had the willingness to run. They would have forced it. They would have, maybe I mentioned Devontae Booker. You would have had C.J. Anderson, who was still pretty effective. Maybe even you bring back the late Ronnie Hillman as part of that. Actually, wasn't he in camp that year and got cut?
I believe so.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So maybe Ronnie sticks on the 53, and you're kind of going 3 deep.
But they do force it with Booker and Anderson.
They absolutely force feed the running game to help a young quarterback, and just because of the belief in the running game. So he's getting that support just as he would have gotten in Dallas. I think you could argue he's got better receivers, or at least equivalent, with Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas there, the late Demaryius Thomas. It's so sad that we're talking about 2 guys here. We're calling them late, and it was only 7 years ago. I think the Broncos win the division that year. I think the swing game would have been that Chiefs game there on Sunday Night Football. I think they win that game with Dak Prescott. And
so now we're talking about around 10 wins.
I think we're actually talking just overall, because Prescott would have been better over the long haul. I think we're talking about 11 or 12 wins.
So now we're talking about a playoff run.
Maybe a playoff,
50.
yeah, maybe a playoff bye, not home field advantage, but you're talking about maybe that first round bye. You're playing a home game in the divisional round, and then take care of that. You're playing at New England in the AFC Championship game. I'll say the Broncos don't win that game.
Okay. I would take my chances because they always did well against New England in the postseason.
So Gary Kubiak, though, with his health issues, still decides I'm going to step away.
Would he?
Well,
because we just talked about Joe Gibbs.
We talked in the previous show. We did talk about that. It's a good question. The one thing I know about that is that there were some pretty insistent people around Coobs.
Right.
After he had the TIA back in the Atlanta game in 2016, I think there were some people in his orbit who were going to make sure that he was walking away.
Yeah.
But does he have a more active role rather than just kind of consultant? And who's the head coach then?
Whoever it would be set up with a damn good team and a damn good quarterback.
And this is the thing: if you're going 11-5, 12-4 with a young quarterback, does it behoove you to overhaul the offensive staff as you did, no matter who your head coach is? Because of course, Vance Joseph comes in and they bring in Mike McCoy. They move on from Rick Dennison. I'm not sure that would have been the best course of action. And I know people, Broncos fans, I'm sure have their frustrations with Rick Dennison back then. But if you go 12-4, potentially, if you're playing for the AFC Championship with a rookie quarterback, I don't know if you're pulling the trigger on a massive overhaul of the offense.
Would it be?
So who's the head coach?
Would it be too soon to get Vic Fangio? Because remember, Vic Fangio was promised Gary Kubiak as his OC. So does Gary step back a little bit, is more than just a consultant? This is a real what if, and it's all started from not taking Paxton Lynch because Dallas gets him. Like, would it be too early to get Vic Fangio there? Or would you still get Vance Joseph? And then you'd have Gary in a larger role, maybe not full OC, but maybe assistant head coach, something like that. Like, you would still have Gary Kubiak fingerprints. I know fans will be saying they're get Kyle Shanahan. Like,
well, remember Vance Joseph was a Kubiak assistant.
Yes, yeah. So you have Kubiak, disciple in a way, and you have Vance Joseph there.
But here's the thing: is it Vance Joseph becomes the head coach, but we don't see the offensive staff overhaul?
Yes.
Okay.
And now you have
VJ with a quarterback that you can actually build around.
And a little bit more power because Gary would advise him.
Yes.
But he wouldn't tell him what to do, as was what happened with Vance Joseph.
And there aren't strings being pulled. It's not like, oh, we want to make sure that, Paxton Lynch gets out there and gets some run. No. Vance Joseph takes this job knowing that Dak Prescott's the guy. And he's the quarterback. You guys are going to work together. So there's none of that manipulation going on. There's a pretty clear focus of mission around the Broncos. Everyone's on the same page. First of all, they don't collapse the way they do. I'm not saying every season would have been terrific, and we know that Dak has dealt with some injuries over time. There would have been some bumps. Probably a losing season at some point in there. No reflection on Dak Prescott, but he gets injured and you maybe got a 6-10 type of season,
right? Somewhere
in there. Maybe that year, 2017, with VJ adjusting to the new role, defense starting to get older. Maybe you are looking at a year that is 8-8 rather than 5-11. You don't have a winning season,
but still respectable. Still, you've got the quarterback.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're on the track.
You have the quarterback.
Yes,
I would say 2018 would have looked much different. Of course, that was a 6-10 season. It's funny to look at that year because I think we kind of lump it in with all the other years of this current run of Broncos losing seasons, but that's the year where I think, but for a couple of plays here and there and with the right quarterback, it would have looked a lot different. Do they beat Kansas City on Monday Night Football in week 4? Okay, yeah, I'm going to argue Dak Prescott makes that throw to an open Demaryius Thomas and the Broncos win in a thrilling last-second game. So at that point, you beat Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes having a transcendent year. I think that maybe you don't lose that close game to Houston, that close game to Cleveland. All of a sudden you start putting bits and pieces together with a better quarterback. And it's like, oh,
now you're here.
Now you're
battle tested.
Now you've got 10 or 11 wins. At worst, you're a very solid wild card team that year. Not saying you win the division because you got Mahomes and Kansas City rising, but you've established yourself kind of what the Chargers have done off and on in recent years. You've established yourself as a legitimate contender to where you're going to pick them off from time to time. You're not dealing with this.
You're a tough out.
Yeah. You're not dealing with this long losing streak against the Chiefs. Now, could there come a point where being good was no longer good enough and you make a change at head coach? Yeah, that's possible.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Like let's say you're after the 2021 season and you haven't gotten over the hump, and maybe that 2020 season, Dak still gets hurt. You go like 6-10 or something like that, and you haven't got it all together. And then maybe you look at a new coach, but you're looking at a new coach knowing that you've got a bona fide quarterback, which makes it easier to attract that coach. So, hey, I'll give you a what if right now.
What if?
Okay. Vance Joseph does reasonably well, but can't get the Broncos over the hump. New ownership comes in and says, we got to shake things up a little bit. Broncos coach today is Sean Payton.
So you still get Sean Payton.
But instead of Vance Joseph being his defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph is the coach he's replacing.
I could see it. And Sean Payton with Dak Prescott would be magical. And then you get back to being great, not being good. Being good is not good enough.
Because we're saying the last years would have been kind of off and on good. Let's say the Dak Prescott era to this point 2016 to 2022 for the Broncos, I'm going to say 3 or 4 playoff appearances, a couple of losing seasons, a 500 season. Good and competitive, but you would reach the point where you're saying this isn't good enough.
Can't get us over the top.
But also the other thing is John Elway, I think, also is claimed by good but not good enough as well. So Sean Payton's running the show.
That's a big what if. By the way, back on that Chiefs game, it was Billy Moose as the OC. Because the week after that,
in 18,
the week after that, I asked him, I said, did you know or did you tell that Emmanuel was wide open? Everyone talks about DT on the right sideline. So it's a cover 2 beater. If you go back and watch the all 22, Emmanuel Sanders doesn't have anyone around him.
Yeah.
Nobody. And so I asked Billy Moose. He didn't answer my question, as you would note that he would not. So I want to do something before we wrap up this what if episode. And I love these multiverse episodes. Yeah. It's across the Spider-Verse with Mason Cease. And I'm not saying this because I had a first-round grade on him, because I did. And I'm that guy. And trust me, I still hear from people, you like Paxton Lynch. Yeah. I wanted him to play over Trevor Siemian because I knew Trevor Siemian couldn't play. And I wanted to see the first-rounder play. I don't care if he only ran 8 plays, run those 8 plays. So I'm going to ask you, Mace, and we can chop it up briefly on this. Would they have found a way to make Paxton Lynch into a Jared Goff type of quarterback? Would Dallas have ran those 8 plays? Paxton couldn't do anything. Maybe he's not the brightest bulb in the shed. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Don't want to be mean. But, like, would they have said, hey, we're going to go shotgun. We're going to spread you out. We're going to do exactly what you did in college and hope that you get it. And would there, because, again, with Jared Goff, look at what Goff is doing in Detroit. Jared Goff is not a bad quarterback. It's not great. He has to run exactly what he's told to run. But would they have figured out, would the story be different for Paxton Lynch?
Slightly. Because I don't think you're changing the study habits.
He did like to play Madden.
I also believe that Kellen Moore would have gotten tired of that. He would have been starting to look around other corners for a quarterback who was more cerebral and could do and could really kind of mesh with him. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Kellen Moore is a really smart coach. Mm-hmm. And I think, with all respect to Paxton Lynch, he would have been looking for a quarterback who had a better vibe, like Dak Prescott proved to be.
Would for him Jerry have forced the issue? Because, you know, if Jerry got his quarterback,
yes,
you're starting Paxton Lynch for 3 years, no matter what.
Yes,
because Jerry got his quarterback. So then would Kellen Moore be frustrated and be like, I'm out of here. I can't work with this guy.
Maybe he gets to the Chargers earlier and starts working with Justin Herbert earlier. Of course, he's working with Herbert right now. The great dark horse thing in the 2023 AFC West race is how well Kellen Moore works with Justin Herbert. That is the rogue element that could change how this division looks. Because if they get on the same page, the balance of power could actually switch.
Wow. I love it.
But if Kellen Moore has gotten to LA before then, it's happened already. For all we know, it's not Brandon Staley who's the Chargers head coach. It's Kellen Moore.
Right.
So, like, maybe it's a move kind of like what happened in Tampa Bay, where they fired Lovie Smith to keep Dirk Cutter because he was working with Jameis Winston. Perhaps Anthony Lynn gets sacked so Kellen Moore can be prevented from going somewhere else because he's working so well with Justin Herbert in this alternate universe.
I love it. It's our What If series continuing this offseason. It's Orange and Blue today. We're presented by Champ Honda. He's Mace. I'm Cease. Everyone, thanks for watching. Stay fresh.